Hey 5th grade. Today this video is going to be on adding mixed numbers with unlike denominators. You should have been talking about adding fractions with unlike denominators lately, and we should all know by now that in order to add two fractions with unlike denominators that you must change them and find a common denominator. You must find the least common multiple, or the LCD, the least common denominator, in order to add those two fractions. The same goes for mixed numbers, so we're going to go through just a couple steps for adding mixed numbers with unlike denominators. The first one is to find the least common denominator of the fraction, which is your LCD or your least common multiple. You're listing those multiples out of the different numbers. The second step is to add the numerators straight across. The third step is to keep the denominators the same when you're bringing it down. The fourth step, this is what's different from adding fractions with unlike denominators, is that you have to add the whole numbers. And then for the fifth step, you can simplify that fraction, or if that fraction happens to be an improper fraction, you will have to change it to a mixed number and then add that onto your whole number that you already have. So we're going to practice a couple of these problems today just to kind of look at them. This is one way to solve adding mixed numbers. The other way to solve adding mixed numbers would be to convert the mixed number to an improper fraction and solve that way. But it's totally up to you and totally up to your teacher which strategy that you do use. So looking at a first problem, (1 1/4) plus 1 3/8. Well, I notice right offhand that 4 and 8 are not the same denominator. So for me, I'm going to list out the multiples of 4. So I have 4, 8, 12, 16. For 8, I have 8, 16, 24. Well, do I already see a least common multiple, which can be my least common denominator? I do. 8 and 8 in both rows. So I'm going to box 8 and 8 in just so I know. Now, for 1 3/8, that fraction already has 8 as the denominator. So I don't have to do anything with that fraction. All I need to do is change 1 1/4. So I have 1 1/4. I need to multiply it by something to let me have a denominator of 8. So I have to think to myself, what can I multiply 4 by in order to get to my denominator of 8? Well, 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8, so I'm going to have to multiply by 2. And what I do to the top, I also have to do to the bottom, so you cannot forget to multiply your numerator by that as well. So 2 times 1 is 2. Now, what happens to my whole number over here? Well, nothing happens to it. I don't have to change it. All I have to do is just carry it straight over to my new fraction. So now I can replace up here with the fraction 2/8. Okay? Now, I have common denominators, so I think I'm ready to add straight across. So if I think back to my steps, the second step after you find the least common denominator was to add the numerators. So 2 plus 3, well, that is 5. My third step was to keep the denominators the same. So I have to just bring my 8 straight across. And then my fourth step was to add my whole number. And 1 plus 1 I know is 2. So my answer to my equation is going to be 2 5/8. Now, my step 5 was to simplify, but 5/8, nothing that can go into 5 can also go into 8, and nothing that can go into 8 can go into 5 either, so I cannot simplify this fraction. So 2 5/8 is our answer. So let's look at another one. Alright, if I have 4 2/3 plus 5 3/4. Well, on this one, I'm definitely going to have to find a common denominator because 3 and 4 are definitely not the same. So I'm going to list out my multiples of 3. So 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 4 is 12. My multiples of 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3 is 12. Well, do I have a common denominator? Do I have the same number in both rows? Yes. So I'm going to box that in. That number is 12. And someone in my class yesterday asked, they said, Ms. West, how do you know when to stop listing out multiples of a number if that's what you're having to do, if that's a strategy that you're having to do? And what my suggestion to them was just to list out 3 or 4 to start out with. So for number 3, I listed out 4. For number 4, by the time I got to the third multiple, I had found my least common denominator. So usually I just try and list out 3 or 4, and if I don't see any common numbers within those 3 or 4 numbers, then I move on and list out more. So it just kind of depends. So now I have to go through and change both of my fractions to have a denominator of 12. So I'm going to start with 2/3 first. And I have to figure out what I have to multiply 3 by in order to get to 12. Well, I know that 3 times 1 was 3. 3 times 2 was 6. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 4, that's my fourth multiple, so 3 times 4 is 12. And what I do to the bottom, I also have to do to the top. So 2 times 4, I know, is 8. So instead of 2/3 now, I'm going to have the fraction 8/12. And now I need to do the same thing that I was doing for 2/3 for 3/4. So I have 3/4. It's got to be multiplied by something in order to get 12. Well, I can look back up at my multiples again. 4 times 1 I know is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3, the third multiple is 12. So that means that I'm going to have to multiply by 3 in order to get to 12. And what I do to the bottom, I also have to do to the top. So 3 times 3 is 9. Now I can replace the fraction 3/4 with 9/12. And now I'm ready to solve. So when I look at solving, the second step to our adding mixed numbers is to add the denominator straight across. Well, 8 plus 9, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So that's 17. Step 3 is that I carry my denominator straight across, so that's 12. And then step 4 is that I have to add my mixed numbers. So 4 plus 5 is 9. Now, I noticed something about the fraction 17/12. This is what we call an improper fraction, okay? In a mixed number, we cannot have an improper fraction. So we have to change that improper fraction into a mixed number. Now, how do I do that? Well, we talked about the fraction bar right here, meaning division, so you're going to have to divide. You're going to have to see how many times 12 can go into 17. Well, 12 can only go into 17 one time. 1 times 12 is 12. We subtract 17 minus 12. Well, 7 minus 2 is 5. 1 minus 1 is 0. My mixed number from this division problem is 1 and 5/12. Okay? Now, what I like to do is I like to just erase this fraction up here because now that I've changed it into a mixed number, I'm finished with it. Okay? I don't need it anymore. I have my new mixed number down here. But what I cannot forget about is I cannot forget about my 9 that's up here. What I must do now is I must add my 9 and this whole number together. My whole number right here is 1. So 9 plus 1 is 10. So now, I can write this down here. So now my new answer to my equation up here is actually 10 and 5/12. Okay, I hope this helps you in anything that maybe you're confused about or you're just not sure about, and hopefully you'll get it from here on out.